Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. I'm your host, Amy Beltran, CEO and founder of Irresistible University. Through my signature online coaching program, I teach women just like you how to ditch the body image issues, gain confidence, and lose the emotional weight to look and feel irresistible at any size. If you would like to learn more about my program and what it's like to work with me inside of my Irresistible You program, please schedule a free confidence clarity call at irresistibleicing.com/call. The link is also in the show notes. Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. Welcome back if you are a longtime listener, and hello to those of you that are new. I'm so happy to have you here. So I'm just gonna get right to the point here and say this first. um, I know I sound hoarse. I know I sound a little different, and I just have to share with you guys because I feel like we have that relationship and that connection. This past weekend, both my husband and I tested positive for the COVID. And we know where it came from. It definitely came from my husband's job. And we're doing okay. We don't feel the best. We don't feel amazing, but we actually don't feel um I don't feel completely horrible, if that makes sense. The symptoms are really strange. And maybe I'll in the future talk more about that because I don't want to take up time on this episode. But you can also follow me over on my Instagram at Irresistible Icing, and maybe I'll do it there where I'll kind of share with you kind of how things are going and how we're feeling, and you can keep up with everything. Podcast and for me personally on my Instagram, that's the best place to connect. So it's definitely strange. There's a lot of weird symptoms, but I didn't want to not have a podcast this week because we are in the last 2 weeks of the year, and so I wanted to get on here and I wanted to talk to you guys because I know that this time of year can be really hard for a lot of you. And especially coming off of a year like no other, like 2020, I want to talk to you about that because um it's been a time, right? I it's Here's the thing. You're about to go into the season of new year, new you bullshit all across your social media feed. And I think that level of new year, new you bullshit is going to be even bigger this year because the storyline and the narrative that's going on is like, oh, thank God 2020 is over. Oh my God, it's been such a hard year. Thank God it's over. It's only going to get better from here. And I call bullshit on that, and I'm not calling bullshit because I'm trying to be negative in any way because I definitely like to see the best in things. I like to look at the good in things. I like to look on the bright side of things, but I'm also like to keep shit real. And I don't like the story that's being sold that everything that's happened in 2020 is going to magically get better because it's 2021. And if I've always held this belief. I hold it even higher now. But if you go back to, I think let me see, it's episode number 62. I did an episode called There's Nothing Magical or Life Changing about January 1st. And I kind of talked about the same thing where, nothing is going to magically change or be different because we have a new calendar, because it's a new year. And I want you to have a hard conversation with yourself. Okay. I'm not going to go there talking about COVID and how things, are probably not going to be better for a while. Um, because they're not. 2021 isn't going to change anything at this point, at least not initially. I'm not going there. So, what we're going to be talking about is what we talk about on the podcast: body image, weight, confidence. Okay. I want you to have a hard conversation with yourself. And I want you to ask yourself, when are you going to stop the lie? When are you going to stop the lies and the denial about what's going to change in the new year? Okay. How many years have you made a promise to yourself that this was it? This was the last year. I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to be fat again. This is going to be the last year that I weigh this number. This is going to be the last year I feel like shit in my own body. This is going to be the last year that I do another diet. And If you're still sitting there having the same conversation, you're continuing to lie to yourself and be in denial that a new year is magically going to change everything for you, because it's not. And so that's what I'm going to talk about, is we need to get really real about the fact that nothing changes on January 1st other than the calendar. That's it. So it's really time to stop, because here's what happens, right? When you are telling yourself and creating this romantic story, this fantasy about how when the new year comes, you're never going to eat like shit again. You're never going to feel bad about yourself. You're never going to not have a night where you want to veg out on the couch and Netflix and chill and not do anything. You are telling yourself lies, and then you're setting yourself up for disappointment and failure, because you're a human. You're going to want to overeat. You're going to have shitty thoughts about yourself, and you're going to want to sit in front of the couch and do nothing. And life is going to happen, and life is unpredictable. And it's not about the weight, it's not about the food. It's about the fact that you do not have the skills around how to manage your emotions for all of it. Straight up. Because if you're an emotional eater, you're not using food just to keep yourself alive. You're using food as a coping mechanism. You're using food to make yourself feel better. And you're doing that because you don't know how to manage your emotions when things happen. Okay? And I want you to, so number one, I want you to have an honest conversation with yourself. When are you going to stop lying to yourself and being in denial that things are going to magically change in the new year? Because the only way things are going to change is when you decide that you want a different life. When you decide you want to feel differently. When you decide you're going to start showing up for yourself even when it's uncomfortable. That's when shit changes. Shit isn't going to change because you saw some new shiny stupid ass bullshit diet on Instagram. That's not going to change your life, because it's not going to teach you how to talk to yourself. It's not going to teach you how to stop the inner fat bitch. It's not going to teach you how to lose the fat girl identity. It's not going to teach you how to have self-love and respect for yourself regardless of where you are on your scale. Those diets are never going to teach you that. And if they did teach you that, you wouldn't still be on the yo-yo diet body hate shame cycle. Period. So that's number one, is you have to have this conversation with yourself, and you have to be willing to tell the truth. That's the most important part. And, you know, as we creep into this last part of the year, these last 2 weeks that, let's be honest, between the first couple days before Christmas to the end of the year, it always kind of just feels like this one big, long, like, this one big mush together day. It kind of, the days start to blend together a little bit. And what you have to do is you've got to start taking control over your choices. Stop using the holidays as an excuse, because that's a real convenient excuse. So here's the second thing I want you to do. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to have a flashback. Let's flash it on back. Let's rewind to 2019, girl, in December. And let me hear all of your excuses. What were you bitching and complaining about in 2019 before the shit hit the fan and all the stuff happened that happened in 2020 that we had no idea was about to head our way? What were you bitching and complaining about as it relates to your weight and your life? And I want you to write that down too. So number two is like, what was the story you were telling yourself last year? And I bet you it was something like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I have all these parties and I have all these events, and I'm going to end up overeating and over drinking. I'm going to gain back all my weight, and it's going to ruin my diet, and I don't know how to handle this, and I don't know how to tell, Aunt Betty and so no, and they hand out their famous cakes and pies and desserts, and I just don't know how to handle all of this, and I'm so busy. I've got to get all the gifts. I've got to go, we're flying here and flying there and going to this family and that family, and oh my God, I'm so stressed out. What am I going to get the kids? You were doing it. And Lord, if you had the elf on the shelf, which I don't know how, I'm 4 years in to being a mom, and I still got out of that, okay? And I'm hoping to make it out of the elf on the shelf for another couple years. So we haven't been doing that yet. So if you have that on top of it all, of like, how am I going to put the elf on the shelf out today, and all this kind of nonsense? How much self-induced stress and expectations did you put on yourself a year ago? And how much fear did you have floating around about what to eat, what not to eat? How am I going to say no? I've got all these things to go to. Oh my God, what am I going to wear? I don't like how I look in this dress, and blah, 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 blah. What did your 2019 look like? And how many other years have you spent with the same bullshit excuses year after year after year, to the point where you probably sound like a broken record and you're probably sick of hearing yourself? Okay? So now I want you to think about the fact that in 2020, all you have done is swapped out your circumstances with using COVID as your excuse. And that's not to say that this isn't hard. This isn't a rough year, because obviously it is. But what I'm trying to get you to see is that there will always be something out of, like, some kind of circumstances going on, that you will automatically have a knee-jerk reaction and use that as the excuse as to why you can't show up for yourself, as to why you keep quitting on yourself. I want you to see that if it wasn't COVID this year, it would be something else. It would be just like every other year. So now you're switching it out for, I'm so sad because I can't see my parents, and I'm so sad because we're not flying to see my in-laws, and I'm so sad because there's no company party, and I'm so sad that I can't, do my ornament exchange with my girlfriends, and we can't go out to the bars, and we can't go party it up on New Year's Eve, and I'm not going clubbing on New Year's Eve, and I'm so sad, and what am I going to do? And now, instead of having all these events and all these things where food was the excuse as to, you were going to eat all the things and drink all the things, now it's like, I'm going to eat my ass off because I can't see everyone. I mean, really, let's put this on the table and call ourselves out on our own bullshit, right? So it's like, if it's not one thing, it's another. And here's a news flash for everybody. I don't care how young or how old you are, it will always be something. You know how you always, the washer breaks, or I don't know, there's another pile of laundry to do, and it's like, oh, there's always something. Yeah, there is always something. That's life, right? And sometimes it can get really frustrating because we're like, man, I just want a break. I just want a clean break where nothing happens for a while. And it just gets a little monotonous for a while, right? But that's not life. I don't care how good your life is, there is always something. So it's like, just get used to it and accept that and learn how to manage your damn emotions. Otherwise, you need to accept that you're going to be running on the yo-yo diet body hate shame cycle to the day you die. Straight up. Because there will always be something. That is just, life. And so it's like, you have to stop waiting for all conditions to be perfect, for all things to just settle down. Because if it's not Christmas and New Year's, then what is it? Well, Valentine's is coming, so oh my God, how am I going to survive without a chocolate heart? It's like, how, and right now it's like, I don't know how I'm going to survive without a chocolate Christmas tree. Guys, it's the same fucking chocolate. It's just different cookie cutters or whatever the hell they use. But like, it's the same chocolate. It's the same shit. So there's always going to be something, right? So the food is always going to be there. There's always going to be a celebration. You're going to have a birthday every single year. You can count on that, right? You're going to have, drama and people that piss you off. It's going to happen. There's just things that are going to happen. And so you have to learn how to manage your emotions and not use the inner fat bitch chatter and food to solve everything going on in your life. Which means, yeah, you just have to be okay with being uncomfortable sometimes and stop running away from it. And that if you would actually allow yourself to sit in discomfort from time to time, you would process through those emotions so much faster. And then you could learn from them and you could move on with your life. Because every time you sit there and beat yourself up and indulge the inner fat bitch chatter and use food, all you're doing is delaying what you're feeling right, what you should feel right now. You're just delaying that even longer. Okay? And so this lie that all of that's going to go away because it's January 1, stop kidding yourself. Because here's the thing too. Your whole life, you've been telling yourself, this is the last year. This is the last New Year's Eve that I don't like how I look in the I want to wear the sexy sequin dress. This is the last year I feel like shit. This is the last year I feel bloated and gross on Christmas Day. This is it. This is it. This is it. And so you panic. You look for the next shiny fad diet that's going to promise to get the weight off as fast as possible. And let me tell you, your feed on social media is going to be popping off with all kinds of stuff. And I don't want you falling for the gimmicks, because it's going to feel in that moment, this is what I need to do. I'm going to get that weight off. I'm going to get off like 10 pounds right off the bat in January. I'm just going to do it. And that weight never stays off, does it? Have you ever thought about why? Because you're not learning how to manage your emotions. You're not learning how to lose the emotional weight along with the physical weight. And as long as you delay that, you will continue to be a little hamster on your yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle wheel. You just will. Because then, boom, something's going to happen in February, March. Well, I was doing so good, and then, this happened and that happened. It's like, yeah, that happened. So how are you managing it? How are you managing your thoughts and feelings around it? Because those things that happen have nothing to do with your diet and your exercise. Nothing. Nothing. And sometimes it just takes us being woman enough to call ourselves out on the carpet and be like, you know what, bitch? Like, you got to tell the truth. Like, yeah, you're really not doing what you said you were going to do. Because we live in denial. We tend to live in denial about how we're eating, how we're showing up. Well, I was doing, but like, were you? Were you? Like, be honest with yourself. So much of this comes down to you being willing to have these honest conversations with yourself and calling yourself out when you're not telling the truth. Or when you're glossing over the truth, acting like everything is great when it's really not. And you do this because you don't want to feel discomfort. And if you would, I cannot say it enough, it's like if you would allow yourself to feel discomfort, that is how you move to the other side. That is how you start to become irresistible you. Is recognizing that every emotion you feel is not happy-go-lucky rainbows and unicorns. And it's not supposed to be. So wherever this fantasy came from, that everything is supposed to be amazing all the time, that is a lie. Right? It's like, that is a lie. So you have got to take stock of, where were you a year ago? What were you telling yourself a year ago? What lies are you continuing to tell yourself about what the new year means to you? And how many of you are awakening from your slumber in January going, oh shit, how did this happen? How did I get here again? Oh God, my jeans don't fit. And oh my God, girl, I can't wear this. And then you act like it just happened. Because you decide at some point, and you are deciding, at some point you made a decision, I'm just going to zombie walk my ass through the rest of the year because fuck it, who cares? And this year, it's fuck it, who cares, because COVID-19 lockdown. It's because I can't see people. It's because there's no parties. It's because I can't do this. And last year it was F it, shut it down, because there was just too much to do and I don't know how to say no and I don't know how to control myself around food. So, see what I'm saying? It's like compare the two stories and the common denominator is you, boo. It's you. It is you. It is you and your excuses that you make. Because a year from now, what is it going to be? And that's the third thing I want you to think about. How do you want to feel about yourself? Because this weight gain, weight loss, how you think and feel about yourself doesn't just happen to you like you're this helpless victim. Okay? And that is not to be confused with the circumstance, right? Something can happen in your life, but you get to decide how you handle that, how you deal with that, how you show up for yourself. So I want you to think about a year from now, how do I want to feel going into the last 2 weeks of the year? How do I want to feel? How do I want to think? How do I want to be talking to myself? And if you notice, I'm not asking you how do you want to look. I'm not asking you how much do you want to weigh? What size do you want to be? I don't care. Because it doesn't matter how much weight you lose until you lose the emotional baggage that you're carrying behind you. Because you could get to your goal weight and hate yourself to your core because you haven't done the work to shed the inner fat bitch, to shed the fat girl identity, to learn how to show up for yourself, to learn how to be a confidence queen. If you haven't learned how to do that, what you weigh and what you look like, it's irrelevant. Because I promise you, if you don't do this work, the self-hatred that you have about your weight and the fat is only going to manifest into other areas. Because once the weight is gone and you don't have that as the center obsession of your universe anymore, well, guess what your next problem will be? Oh my God, all this loose skin. I am so disgusting because I have all of this loose skin. Ew. Oh my God, I am so gross. Look at all these stretch marks because I was such a fat ass pig that ate my way through life. And now look at me, I'm so disgusting. Ew, look at all my cellulite. I can't believe I look like this. I'm so gross. And because you think that way, you're going to feel self-conscious about yourself. And when you feel self-conscious about yourself, you're going to continue to hide. You're going to continue to play small. You're going to continue to not live the life you really crave for yourself that you magically thought would happen because you got to your goal weight. The life you crave, and I'm using air quotes now, magically happens when you do the work to lose the emotional weight too. That's when life magically happens so that you start creating the life that you want and that you crave way before you even get to your goal weight. So that when you get to your goal weight, it's like, oh, cool, icing on the cake. So that's what I'm saying here is like if you don't drop the emotional weight, and you don't learn how to manage your emotions, and you don't learn how to manage the inner fat bitch chatter, you could be a size 6 and none of it matters because you have so much hatred for yourself. And I have met so many, thin women that can't stand who they are, that don't like who they are, that are embarrassed to be seen. And the other thing is when you've been the fat girl your whole life, all you still see in the mirror is the fat girl. You're still hiding behind other people and pictures. You're still putting the pillow in front of your stomach when you sit down. You're still, playing small and not standing up for yourself and using your voice because you're afraid to be seen. Because in your mind, you're still the token fat girl. And you don't want to be called out for your weight. Because in your mind also, you still don't think you're worthy, that you deserve respect and love, especially from yourself. So that fantasy that you're living in, that January 1 is going to be the year that you lose the weight and you magically live the life you crave just because you go on a diet, stop telling yourself this lie. And then you wonder, well, I lost all my weight and I gained it back and I don't know why. You gained it back because you didn't learn the things that I'm telling you. You didn't learn how to lose the emotional weight. You didn't learn how to have confidence in yourself. You didn't learn how to show up for yourself when shit gets hard. You didn't learn how to manage your emotions when life decides to punch you in the gut. And when life decided to punch you in the gut, you just decided to check out. I don't have time for weight loss right now. I don't have time to take care of myself right now. I don't have time to think about my food. I don't have time to move my body. And I just decided I'm going to check out and I'm going to zombie walk my ass through life. And then all of a sudden I'm going to wake up and I'm going to realize I gained all the weight back and I'm going to sit there and act like a victim and wonder how the hell it happened and beat myself up and think, oh my God, I can't believe this happened again. What is wrong with you? You're such a failure. This always happens. Why can't you keep the weight off? How sick are you of hearing yourself tell that story? If you're sick and tired of telling yourself that story, then make some changes. Understand that you have no control over certain circumstances, but you have 100% control over your choices. Weight gain, weight loss, these feelings that we're talking about, the body hate, yo-yo diet, shame cycle, that does not just happen. It's happening because you at some point have made a decision to zone out, to be in denial, and just zombie walk around life acting like everything just happens to you. And that's the honest conversations that you have to start having with yourself. And that's why I come on here and I keep it real with you and I tell you like it is and I don't sugarcoat shit. Because people sugarcoating and coddling you and telling you it's okay, that's not helping you. None of that is helpful. When you feel the way that you feel, you need to be called out on your own shit. And I have no problem doing that. So use this episode, use this podcast as a springboard to start doing the same for yourself. Because if you want to sit there and be meek and mild and live in denial and act like everything is okay, I'll just start over in January and blah, 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 it'll be different this time. Well, then accept the fact that you will have this same conversation with yourself 1 year from today. Mark my words. And if you don't believe me, compare the conversation you were having a year ago to how you feel today. Go ahead, I'll wait. Yeah? So that feeling that you have, that end of the year, I can't believe I'm still here. This is the last time I'm going to do this. Oh, I can't believe this is happening. If you don't want to feel that again, guess who gets to change it? You do. And that is the most empowering, badass bitch feeling you could have. And when you realize, no matter what gets thrown at me this year, I get to control this piece of it. Then you get to feel like a badass bitch. For real. Like, you get to decide how this story goes and what it looks like this time next year. And so that's the next thing I want you to do is like, you need to write down in great detail, how do I want to feel December 2021? When I'm standing, let's take it to New Year's Eve. And hopefully, girl, by New Year's Eve, we're going to be partying it up because I am going through withdrawal this year. I have never, ever stayed home on New Year's Eve and not done something and gone partying and clubbing or gone to a party. So I'm just like, I might sit my ass in my sequin dress in the living room. It might happen. We'll just have to see. But anyway, so let's just pretend that this time next year, we're standing in front of the mirror on New Year's Eve, and I want you to write in great detail. How do you feel? What are you talking about? How are you talking to yourself? What is different for you a year from now? That's what you have to do. And, in the last episode, I talked with you about really getting clear on defining your reasons why, your compelling reasons why weight loss is important to you. And in that episode, I shared with you that it's not good enough to stay surface level. It's not good enough to just say, I want to be healthy. I want you to do the same thing here. Is like, I'm standing in front of the mirror and I feel really good about myself and life is great and I'm really happy. No. Try again. That's not going to cut it, okay? That is that glossed over denial bullshit. What I want you doing when you're thinking about yourself a year from now, I want granular details, like what you're wearing, how you're feeling, the things that you are actually telling yourself, your plans, what you're about to do, how you're taking care of yourself. I mean, down to like every little detail. Why? The reason for that, and the reason I told you to do this in the last episode also with your compelling reasons to get really granular about it, is because the more you start to pull things out and get detailed and really think about your goals and what you want for yourself, and you start to really define the life that you're craving, it becomes real. It becomes more of a reality, and it becomes a compelling reason why you don't want to numb out and zombie walk through the rest of the year. When you can really make it where it almost feels tangible, then it becomes compelling. Then it becomes like, man, I could actually see this happening. And when you continue to say, I just want to lose weight, like, why? What does that even mean? And that's why in the last episode, too, I want you to go back and listen to that one if you haven't. And I want you to put your compelling reasons why weight loss is important to you, because it has to be more than just, I need to lose 30 pounds. That is not compelling. And that is obviously not going to keep anyone motivated or interested when shit hits the fan. Okay? It's just not. So, these are just the things we have to do. And if you want this bad enough, and when I say want this, I don't just mean weight loss. I mean unlocking the life that you have held hostage because of your weight. When you have been the token fat girl all your life, most of your life, there's an identity that you have created in that feeling of unworthiness. I don't deserve love. And it's not, and here's the thing. We don't sit around and say, I'm just so unworthy. I don't deserve love. Nobody does that, okay? Because we're not even woke to know that that's a thing yet. What we do is we do it in our actions, right? We, they ask for volunteers at work and you don't raise your hand. You go to school and you sit in the back row so that nobody sees you and you can slide in and out quicker. You go to the beach and you keep the cover up on. You go to the beach and you slowly work your way out of the cover up, but then you put a towel over your stomach. You tell yourself stories about why you don't even like going swimming. So a lack of self-love and self-worth, it shows up in other ways. And when that has been your identity, this what we call in the Irresistible You coaching program, we call that the fat girl identity. When you have had that your entire life, you don't even know who you are outside of that. And here's another example. You don't even know who you are outside of the weight problem. Because it's not the weight. The weight is a symptom of the shit you're not dealing with. And when you have constantly had this yo-yo diet, body hate, shame cycle at the center of your universe, right? It's like you're if I could just, and here's the thing, everything else in my life I can do. I can crush my goals. I can do this. I can do that. Why can't I solve this? And it's because you have this identity that's so wrapped up in it. And if that goes away and you get to your goal weight, what's left? What's left? It's all this crap that you haven't learned how to deal with. And when you have the fat girl identity, you don't even know what you want. Like sometimes it's crazy to me when I have the my so if you can schedule a free confidence clarity call with me if you want to talk more about the program, see if you're a good fit. And whenever I have these calls, one of the questions that, and I promise you almost every single person gets hung up and they can't answer the question, where we talk about, what do you want for yourself? What is your, like, what are your big goals and dreams? How do you want to feel? Nobody can ever answer that with 100% confidence because no one has ever asked them the question, and they've never asked themselves the question, and they've never given themselves permission to have anything bigger and better than what's happening now. So it's not just about the weight. It's about how the weight is, literally and metaphorically holding you back, holding you down. And that a lot of times what happens, we go back to the whole zombie walking thing, where you don't realize the things that you're doing because no one has ever called it out and you don't have the self-awareness yet to realize it. Just all the ways that you have it's like learned helplessness in a sense, if you will. Because this is just how things have always been, and you've just learned how to adapt and deal with it. And maybe you never realized there was another way. And I'm telling you, there is. There's a better life out there for you. There's more out there for you, and that you are bigger and better than just your weight. And that all the things that you want, all the things that you crave, you do not have to wait for those things to happen. In fact, starting the opposite of what you've been taught, that you start doing those things now, and the weight loss will be a byproduct of it all. So, it's about to be a new year. Let's recognize that, we all love a fresh start. We all love a clean slate. But that metaphorical, clean slate and fresh start is not enough. That's not going to magically change. If it's December 21st, you're not going to magically talk to yourself better on January 1st until you start putting the work in. And this work doesn't come easy. This work doesn't come overnight. Even the girls in my program, I constantly have to pull them back into, how are you thinking? How are you talking to yourself? When we look at the behaviors, well, I don't know why I'm overeating and I told myself I wouldn't do it. Well, what are you thinking about? And what are you telling yourself? And, even myself, I have to constantly redirect thoughts. I have to shut the inner fat bitch down. So this work, it's going to be there forever. But you need the tools in your toolkit to be able to manage it and navigate it. Because otherwise, you just get caught in that hamster wheel with nowhere to go. So the new year, new you bullshit's coming. Be prepared. Mute things, unfollow things if, they're triggering and you just don't want to see it. And I want you to know that there's a better way. There is a different way, and it doesn't require some bullshit fad diet. It requires you learning how to manage your emotions so that you can build confidence. You can drop the body image issues, and you can lose the emotional weight. And that is what actually matters at the end of the day. So, as you go into the holiday season, I want you to keep these things in mind. I want you to be thinking about it. And I want you to do the work that we talked about, to do that journaling work, to write those things down, to get really crystal clear about what it is that you want. Because that's what matters. That's what matters. It's not about how much weight. It's not about what size. It's about how you want to feel, how you want to show up, and what kind of life do you want for yourself. Allow yourself to not put parameters around what that looks like. It might feel impossible because you're not there yet. And you get there step by step, little by little. So, let's continue this conversation in the free Irresistible You podcast discussion group on Facebook. You can search for Irresistible You, look for groups. You will see the Irresistible You podcast group. The link is also in the show notes. Let's also, keep up with one another over on Instagram. You can find me at Irresistible Icing, where I'll be keeping in touch with you throughout the next couple weeks through the end of the year and beyond. And I would love to ask you for a small favor. If this podcast has helped you in any such way, I would love for you to head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. It literally takes a couple of seconds, and that is the biggest way that you can help and support me if you have found this helpful. So, on that note, guys, let's wrap this up. If I don't talk to you before the new year, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Have fun, enjoy, take some of the pressure off of yourself. But also at the same time, let's start holding ourselves accountable. Let's recognize that a new year is just that. It's just a new year. And it changes when our behavior and our actions change with it. So on that note, I will talk to you in the next one. Stay irresistible. Bye, guys.